Welcome to AI Applied. Guys, first of all, let me just say this. On behalf of me and Jaden, we are so grateful that you listen to this podcast. I'm going to ask you for something right off the top. I promise we're going to get into this. We have the most amazing thing to well, we don't, but we have the most amazing thing to talk about. But here's the thing. We are going for 200 reviews. We are already up 8 more since the last podcast that we were on. If you haven't yet, it means the world to us if you could do this. It's like it helps other people discover the show. It's huge. If today could be the day that you leave a rating or review and help us climb to that 200, we so desperately want to see it. Thank you for listening to that upfront message. Always appreciate you guys. Listen, but today, Jade, you and I were just like, we were going off on this and just talking and talking. I'm like, look, we got to just roll tape here because this is too good. Seeing a lot of things colliding at once, right? And just even over the last week, right? So over the last week, literally front page of the Wall Street Journal, the American rebellion against AI is gaining steam. Front page, above the fold, Wall Street Journal. In the New York Times that same day, the generation that grew up with AI hates it, right? All this stuff is happening at once. But meanwhile, on almost the same day, Jaden, Citadel CEO Ken Griffin, right? And so this is a guy who is a huge AI skeptic. He was up at Davos being like, I don't know, this just seems like trash, all that kind of stuff. He sat down at, I think it was Stanford Leadership Institute or something like that. I may have that name wrong. But this is this thing where this guy who was like, nah, I can't replace what we do, all that kind of stuff for months, is now saying, I went home depressed on Friday because I saw AI replacing not mid-level work, not kind of basic white collar work, but the smartest minds that we have doing the work in hours instead of days. And Jaden, with all that, okay, so we have consumers on one side being like, AI is the worst. You have enterprise on the other side being like, we have to use AI. And then you have the midterms coming up. Jaden, we are coming to a battle royale. What is going to happen here?
Oh my gosh, I mean, it's a wild question, but I think it's so applicable because basically we're in this really tricky point. You brought up like all the booing. There was like this week 3 different commencement addresses where Eric Schmidt, Google CEO, Scott Borchett, Big Machine Records CEO, Gloria Caulfield, Travis Scott, Development VP, all of them went up and gave commencement speeches, and all of them were booed when they mentioned AI. So basically we have kind of like the next generation that's coming out of college, and I get it because they probably have a lot of anxiety around job security, what they're even what they're even studying, if it's even going to be necessary or needed. A lot of entry-level jobs have removed or shifted, and so I can understand like where this is at. But you brought up a great point from the Wall Street Journal, that there is kind of this rebellion against AI. Here's what I think needs to happen for us to be able to fully embrace AI. Number one, I think it's very unhelpful for every company this in the last month that has announced layoffs to say it's due to AI, it's due to our AI investments, or people are being replaced by AI or not. I mean, very unhelpful. And it's borderline. I mean, I don't want to say fraudulent, right?
It's fraudulent. Say it. It's fraudulent.
It's fraudulent because here's what happened. They overhired during COVID. They overhired for many positions. They were kind of peak ZERP eras, and many things had too many people in their company, or their company is struggling financially. There's a lot of things that are going on. And instead of just having an honest conversation and saying, hey, we're making some shifts, we're going to make this company more efficient, they peg it on AI because it's the easiest scapegoat. It's the market condition. It has nothing to do with them. It's just the market. So anyways, and I get it. Never waste a good crisis, but still, I think it's basically it's quite dangerous for the rest of the country because now we're trying to villainize an incredible productivity unlock that could make our country more prosperous. And the problem, as you mentioned with the midterms coming up, is that now it's becoming a bit of a radioactive topic. It's no longer, like it is deeply unpopular with 60% of the population that, don't like AI or the term AI, whether that's younger people that are booing it because they feel like it's taking their jobs, whether it's older people that feel like, maybe there's too many changes happening too quickly, or even mid people in the middle that just are having all these layoffs announced and pegged on AI. So it's becoming a radioactive topic. I'm curious from your perspective, Connor, on how politicians, right and left, I mean, who cares? Let's make this bipartisan. Like, we just want some prosperity in this country. How should politicians approach this topic in a positive way? What's the case where we could still make AI win and help? Basically, what's the painting to help people understand what an incredible opportunity this is?
I mean, don't you think that we're politicians are sort of screwed? Like politicians kind of like, and I'm not anti-politician by any means, right? But I'm actually really not. I'm probably more like pro-politician than most people. I don't like hate the government or anything like that. But I will say that politicians live and die on one thing, and that's votes. Like fund, like when they get funding, when they get like people sort of giving big donations, that is only in service of votes, right? So if they have to choose between funding and votes, they are going to choose votes, right? So what does that mean? It means that like you have incredibly wealthy donors who are out of the Googles and Open AIs and everybody else who are perfectly willing to give hundreds of millions of dollars. Like think about what Elon did, right? With Trump, hundreds of millions of dollars they will do tomorrow if they think it can sway those politicians to allow a data center to be built or something like that. The problem is just it's just overwhelmingly unpopular. I think from the environmental side of it for one thing, and also from the taking jobs. It's students like love AI, and then all of a sudden they get into the workforce, they're like, oh, I love my AI tutor, and then they look across the aisle and the AI tutor is applying for the same job that they're applying for, right? Like that's what's happening, and it's kind of devastating. I don't know how they reverse this trend. I genuinely don't. And you could sort of say all you want. And I think Eric Schmidt in the second half of that speech was like, "Hey, what about drug discovery?" Everybody's like, "Screw you!" Right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, so obviously it's not like I'm not saying that they're irrational. I'm not definitely not saying that because I would be scared too. Like, I have teenagers. Your kids are a little, obviously younger than mine, but we're all going to face this. And entry level, that entry level thing is snapping. So I'm not sure that anything can be done from the politicians. I think it has to be done internally at enterprise. Like when we, so we work with a lot of big companies, right? And so when we work with senior leadership teams, it's the first thing we do when we start an enterprise partnership. And we've worked with a ton of them, some of the biggest in the world, right? We have four things that we kind of talk to them about, right? It's like messaging, moving from encouragement to expectation of use, redeploying time, and restructuring. That first one, though, messaging, we always start here after we do like our whole rewire thing for organizations, all that kind of stuff. But the first thing I say, Jaden, is I'm like, I don't know how you feel about Brene Brown, and I'm talking like CEOs of these Fortune 100 companies and their whole leadership team. I'm like, I don't know how you feel about Brene Brown, but vulnerability is the single best way of reaching people on this, and here's why. You see all these CEO memos, and I've probably said this on the podcast before. Hopefully, I'm not a broken record, but it's like the Fiverr, Duolingo, Shopify CEOs being like, guys, this is extinction level event, like for me and for you, we got to start using it, right? That only you have to either lean in or lean out to AI because you can't mandate it. So what does that mean? It means that you have to sort of like bring people along, and you don't bring people along by telling scared people you're going to lose your job. You bring them along by saying like, hey, like leaning into the vulnerability, like, yeah, this is scary for me too. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm worried for our company sometimes. I'm worried for my family. I'm worried for my kids, but here's how I'm trying to do it. And you pitch this, like in our case, like a course, but you pitch AI adoption training, whatever it is, as an employee engagement thing. You sort of say like, this is going to be good for you. It's going to help you become a better cook and spouse and gardener and everything else. So Jaden, I don't think politicians can solve this. I think that they are going to be the sail that gets blown by the wind. I think in order to sort of like control that wind, we have to start where the people are, and that's inside enterprise. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Would love to hear your thoughts on all that stuff.
Okay, I 100% agree. I think messaging is a big point, and I think helping people understand that AI is bringing more prosperity. There's actually a very interesting thing if you have to do layoffs, how to approach it. So we've had layoffs every single week, basically every single day in the last month from major companies. Today was no exception. We had ClickUp that announced layoffs. I actually really appreciate, and I'm not sure if this was controversial or not. I saw this post, and I actually really appreciated the way that Zeb Evans went about this. Basically, they're reducing headcount 22%. So I mean, big layoff over at ClickUp. The one thing that I really liked that he said though was that this wasn't just about AI. And he kind of goes into how the economy is shifting, how people are shifting, how job roles are shifting. I think there's so much that's shifting, and I think that's okay to acknowledge, right? We're not going to say that like AI isn't a contributing factor to a lot of this, but I think it's important to acknowledge that roles are shifting, and there's still ways for every single person listening to win in this new world. The thing that I really liked that he said particularly, and I hope more companies will do this, is that he said this wasn't just about cutting costs, and that they will actually most of the money that they're saving from these 22 people getting cut is actually going to go back to the employees currently at the company. He said everyone affected, or he said that if you create outsized impact using AI, you'll be paid outside of traditional bands. He also said that they were going to create $1 million salary band at ClickUp. So for people that are driving outsized returns, you will be rewarded for it. And if you're, if you're a huge player, and I just think that that's it's so much more rewarding people for the work they do. So anyways, I appreciate that because I feel like that it's there's more to go around. There's more that people can benefit from it. But I will say the one thing I'm sure people will criticize about that is they're gonna say, well, it looks like the rich are getting richer. All the top people at Anthropic, great, they're all gonna make more money. Or the top people at ClickUp, great, they're gonna make more money. And if you weren't contributing enough, you're getting cut and you're part of the permanent underclass. And I think that is a messaging that politics is gonna have to try to deal with. If you were running America, Connor, what would your messaging be to the whole country on grappling with that issue in particular? Like, how would you get that across?
First of all, I love this scenario. I think we should start every podcast with Connor. If and when you end up running,
of course,
if and when you end up running
very
America,
ambitious man, I know.
it's all I think about. How am I going to run for office? I really think that I think the country just loves polarization right now, so it's just easier to sort of like love it or hate it. And so you have to sort of like, lean into that and say like, look, is it great? Yeah. Is it terrible? Yeah. It's both of these things. And so what does it look like that it's both of these things? And actually just like really lean into the honesty of that. It's like, hey, listen, yeah, with, data centers, it's going to take a toll on the environment. But I'll tell you what, a lot of things are taking a toll on the environment right now. And we make choices about that. So in other words, like automobiles, right? Over the last, 80 years or something like that, like automobiles have done unbelievable damaging impact, but we've chosen automobiles. So, and also they're the leading cause of death, among sort of like a certain demographic, right? Like all of these things. And yet we choose automobiles. So why do we choose it? And I think that case has to be made for AI, not just like, is it good or is it bad, but like, yes, is there an environmental impact and is there a job impact? Yes. So why are we choosing it? Like, make that case for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, and from environment, it's a little trickier, but you can say like, we think that this is going to actually help. Ultimately, it's also we do think it's going to save lives. What's it going to do for entry level jobs and all that kind of stuff? And what I would say is like, this is why we have to get everybody upskilled. Like why we have to sort of like change this. And look, and I think China is the one that's sort of like mulling about this idea of like, well, do you have a fund for people who are impacted by AI? I'm not against that. I'm not really a socialist or anything like that, but I'm like, I'm not sure that I'm totally against that idea. And again, it's one of these things where if we just rely on corporations to be good actors, I don't think that's a winning proposition. I just don't. So how do we kind of like acknowledge the good and the bad and actually come to a realist and have a conversation? Like if you don't do that, if you don't get the skeptics in the room, this is what we do all the time, right? We sort of like have to address the skeptics in the room first, because otherwise they're going to tank everything the moment I leave the room.
Yep.
How do we do that? Run to the skepticism and then have an honest conversation about it.
I love that. I think that is the way within your organization that you're in today. Or, of course, if you're running the entire country, this is great advice for either of those people. But speaking of helping your organization understand these things, Connor, you brought up a bunch of great points about how you use AI mindset and you roll that out inside of organizations. I would highly encourage anyone listening, if you haven't already brought Connor's AI mindset course to your organization, it is a phenomenal course. There's companies that are rolling this out to all 10,000 of their employees. Because they've seen so much transformation inside the organization. So I'm putting a link in the description, but honestly, if you want your company to succeed today in the age of AI, this is the number one thing I'm recommending to people to help them upskill, change their frameworks, change their mindset, and understand what the science is behind how to actually use AI and leverage it today. So go check out the link to that. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into the podcast today. We appreciate all of you as listeners, and we'll catch you all in the next episode.